Joined now by the Executive Director of the Idaho High School Activities Association, Mr. Ty Jones. Ty, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Ty, I want to start with an addition that you guys made over the summer to the Idaho High School Activities Association staff, and that, of course, was the hiring of former Twin Falls Athletic Director Mike Federico as the new Assistant Director. Can you tell me a little bit about why the association wanted to hire another Assistant Director?
Yeah, we're real excited about having Mike here. If people remember, last year, the year before, we hired a social media person, and so we'd already had 6 in the office. And we, with all the things that we're trying to do and things that we're trying to promote, we thought that, we definitely needed some more help, and we do. And when that person moved on, we thought, what we need to do is maybe revamp the job description. And so we moved from a social media and technology coordinator and took some of those jobs and placed them within our office with some people that can do those jobs, and thought we need to hire another assistant executive who can take on some of the new things that we're doing. We've added swimming. Julie Hammonds is going to be in charge of swimming, but that's one more activity, and then some student advisory things, and we want to increase what we do with our sportsmanship and our coaches' education, and it was just time to add a person that could help us do that. Mike will be fantastic.
And why was Mike an attractive candidate for that job?
Well, believe it or not, we had a ton of attractive candidates. I mean, it was, I wish we could hire 10 different people. The thing that I think is going to make Mike successful in our position is that he knows a lot of people around the state. He's been an athletic director for quite some time, and a successful athletic director at that. Plus, his philosophy is very kid driven, very very student athlete oriented, and when that and he wasn't the only one, but obviously we felt that he was the best one, and the qualities that he had were we felt fit exactly what we were looking for.
So from what I'm gathering, it sounds like having Mike in the fold was going to help you achieve some of the goals that you had. And I guess my next question is, what are some of the future goals of the Idaho High School Activities Association? I mean, what do you want to accomplish within, the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, we've already started on it, and it's a good question. We really want to do everything that we can for our schools as far as coaches' education and trying to get things to help them become better coaches and better administrators and do more things for kids. And so that was, we go back to your previous question about Mike. That was one of the reasons that we hired him, because now we have 3 people that can attack that rather than just 2. We also are looking at trying to, I guess the best way to describe it would be to update what we're doing. Our office building needed a little bit of updating. We were stuck in the 90s, for lack of a better term, and we need to do those types of things so that we can better serve, either digitally or online type clinics and rule type things that for our officials and coaches and student athletes, and I would say, Matt, if I had to say the 2 or 3 things that I'd really like to see, I'd like to see us continue to do the things that we're doing in the area of student safety as far as activities and sports. I'd like to see a huge increase in our coaches' education piece. I think that we could offer so much to our coaches, and right now we just don't offer as much as I'd like to. Those are probably the 2 biggest things that I see. And then if I had to pick a third, would be to continue to increase the number of student athletes and student participants, activity participants that we have in the state, to watch that number continue to grow.
We're chatting here with Ty Jones. He is the Executive Director of the Idaho High School Activities Association. And Ty, you mentioned a few moments ago about updating the building, of course, referring to the IHSAA offices. And for those out there who don't know, the IHSAA is currently undergoing a building renovation. And I guess the question I wanted to ask you, Ty, was the need to better serve the schools in an online setting, because everything seems to be moving that way now. Was that one of the primary reasons that the renovation project became a reality?
Exactly. And it's not just online. I mean, when you add Mike, The one last little office that we had is now gone. Our workroom, as we continue to increase the amount of things that we send out to schools, we do all of our printing in-house. We do all of our tournament prep in-house. Our boardroom doubles as a workspace, and the more that we continue to improve and update, we need more space. I mean, it's, you look at schools 20 years ago, and they need more space for this, and the number of people have increased, and we're no different. I mean, we've done a lot for years, with Bill and John when they were the head, with 5 people, and it just kind of became a 6th person was in the works even when I was on the board 6 or 7 years ago. So it's something that John saw years ago, and finally we just felt that it was time to pull the trigger, and that goes kind of in line with the building renovation. It's just, as things happen, it just kind of becomes time to update what you have.
A few moments ago, you also mentioned about the need and the want to promote safety amongst high school athletes in Idaho. Of course, concussions is a hot topic right now, not only in football, but in other sports as well. What are some of the things that the Idaho High School Activities Association is doing right now to promote safety in high school sports?
Another good question. That's one of the things that we did a few years ago is we, and we'll talk specifically about fall sports because, for the most part, the vast majority of concussions, at least for us, come from football and then soccer and volleyball and then other sports after that. Wrestling's a big one too. But we revamped our practice times and the amount of hitting that we actually do, so that we could, people weren't out there just every single day doing tackling drills and those types of things. And there's more rest involved now between practices. There's a cap on the number of hours that teams can practice and how many hours they can practice in a day. Football coaches for years have been using the 2-a-day practice model. And so what we did with that is we tweaked it to where you can still have 2-a-days, you just can't have them on consecutive days. We implemented a brand new, with the help of St. Luke's, a brand new concussion video that has Idaho-specific legislation in there. Our legislature came back with some ideas and some thoughts about what information they'd like to get out to schools, and so we added that to our concussion video, made our own, with the help of St. Luke's, and then ended up paying for a lot of the training that we had for our teachers and coaches. We added a sudden cardiac arrest course that was new last year that are, it's the leading killer of student athletes in the country, and not very many people talk about that. We thought that it was important that our coaches had, we know they're not doctors, but they at least need to know the signs and what to do. And, we're in the process now of revamping our emergency medical plans and talking to districts about that. So we've been really busy, actually, with, trying to give our schools and the coaches thoughts and ideas. And, really it's on them. And they've done a great job a lot of them have already been doing this for years.
It sounds like a lot of these issues are coming more so out into the forefront now. It's really being promoted on things like social media and whatnot. Is this a focus of the association?
When we first added our social media person here a couple of years ago, one of the questions that I always asked people is, we can sit back and continue to let people drive the narrative about what we do, which, to a lot of people, the narrative about what we do is declare kids eligible or ineligible. We do so much more than that, but not a lot of people know it. And so, we right now we are hoping to get a new marketing plan out this fall, but I don't want to say that with any certainty. That's our goal. It's kind of been rushed. We want to make sure that we do it right, but we want to promote the good things that our organization does. I tell schools all the time, don't sit back and take this from people who say that teachers and coaches and education is bad. I mean, most of the time, education and the people that work in it are exactly what's right with the world. And so tell your story so that people know, because it's more fun to tell a negative story than it is to tell a positive story sometimes. So we need to do a better job of telling the positive stories that we do. because a lot of times people are going to drive those negative stories just because that's what they want to talk about.
Now, you talked about a little bit about how there are a lot of things that happen at the IHSAA that people don't understand, and some of those things include considering a lot of proposals for various different things involving all aspects of high school sports. Can you briefly explain the process of how a proposal ends up in the hands of the board of directors?
Yeah, the easiest way to describe it is, I'd say the vast majority of proposals that we get, they will either a coach or a group of coaches will come up with a thought. Let's take the classification proposal, for example. We had some people that had some specific thoughts about how classification should be, so they wrote up a proposal. In that case, they presented it to our classification committee. But a lot of times, if it's a boys coach that has a proposal, they'll send it into our boys coaches rep, or they could send it into me, or they could send it into any person on the board that represents them, and then we will put that on the discussion agenda, and our board will sit down at the meetings that we have, and we'll talk about it. Is this a good rule change? Is it good for the state? And then we'll have a first reading and a second reading, and but it has to be proposed first. Every once in a while, the office staff here will come up with something where a rule might need to be tweaked, and so we'll write that ourselves. That doesn't happen as often because, we deal with those rules so much on a daily basis that we see the potential tweaks that might be needed, but they're just tweaks. Outright rule changes, those generally come from coaches or administrators in our member schools, and as I said, they send it on to whoever represents them, or they send it on to us, and then we get it on the agenda and start talking about it.
Now, one of the recent proposals that was brought forth to the IHSAA Board of Directors, you actually referenced it just a few moments ago, was the one about a potential change in the way the classification system is structured now. And that was partially amended from the original proposal. What it is now, it sounds like, is to keep the current system, but have a competitive equity form for the schools that consistently struggle in sports. Can you explain to everyone out there what exactly a competitive equity form is and how it might affect where a school falls into the classification system?
Yeah, what our board looked at, there was a two-piece proposal from the last system, and one of them part of it dealt with free and reduced lunch numbers, and the other piece dealt with being able to. They wanted to look at ways that if you wanted to petition down, they wanted to give our board some hard facts and figures, and so they came up with a plan to where, unfortunately, these schools, if they petition down, are going to be schools that haven't had as much success over the last couple years. And so they look at it as being an opportunity for them to maybe go down a classification to maybe jumpstart their programs a little bit, and then get a little bit of success, and hopefully, success breeds more success, and then when they move back up, because then their numbers will improve, they'll have to move back up. They won't be able to petition down again because they'll be a little more successful. That'll give them the opportunity to hopefully get some more kids out. Once more kids get out, more excitement in the schools. But it's something that, like I said, you don't wish it on anybody, but those are things that, it's going to give those schools that really struggle in almost all activities an opportunity it gives them another avenue to get down a classification.
Well, the final thing I want to ask you, Ty, also involves some action that the IHSAA Board of Directors took. This happened earlier this year, and that, of course, is with another adjustment to the mercy rule in football, this affecting 5A through 2A. 1A is excluded from this one. Can you explain what exactly the change was to the mercy rule and how this latest change on the rule will benefit high school football in Idaho?
Well, benefit high school football depends on who you talk to, Matt. You know how that goes. I mean, it's one of those philosophical things. The mercy rule is, personally, I think it's a good rule. It allows for schools. You're basically protecting schools from some coaches that don't do a very good job of managing their teams and the clocks as far as when they're up a whole bunch of points. So what's changed for the 3A and the 5A is that the mercy rule will start at the beginning of the fourth quarter. the 2A and the 4A games, it starts at the beginning of the third quarter. And essentially, that gives us 3 mercy rules because the 1A mercy rule is a little bit different, but it starts right after halftime as well. But each classification felt that, by doing that, and 40 points is the rule, that's the threshold, that's what they'd like to see in their school. And, once the classifications want to do that, ideally it'd be 1 mercy rule, but when you can't have the same one. 8-man and 11-man football teams have different logistics sometimes that just don't allow them to play by the exact same rules.
Well, thanks, Ty. I appreciate the time, and best of luck to you and the rest of the staff of the IHSAA the rest of this year.
Matt, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.